there is ample evidence of meetings that have been disrupted by unruly conduct. Under the Home Rule Charter, Article 4, Section 404, the President and the Vice President serve at the pleasure of the Council. For these reasons, I believe it may be necessary to change the leadership of the Council in hopes of having a better functioning Council so that we can get on with the business of the town. I regret that I feel that we have reached this point, as I voted for the current President to hold this position. But I now believe that this Council needs a reset and a fresh start. And as such, I would like to make a motion to call for nominations for a new election for President of the Town Council.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there discussion?
I hope so.
I have,
There better be
Madam President,
What, I'm looking to the solicitor as the parliamentarian.
You can have, it's appropriate to discuss it at this point.
Any discussion?
yes.
Mr. LeBeau.
Madam President, as you know, you were approached in the back room to give up your presidency. I'm going to read a statement here where Ms. Ryan, Councilman Ryan and Councilman, let me find my paperwork here, Hilton brought you in the back room and asked you to resign. They asked you to resign as president with an ultimatum, saying they'll give you 48 hours to resign and make it, please let me finish, and they will make it very easy for you to say it was your job in Boston why you have to resign. With all this said, I would like an investigation on what happened in that back room, a criminal investigation. If it was a criminal act, I would like Ms. Ryan and Ms. Hilton to resign from the council immediately after the investigation shows a criminal act. That's my statement. And that's a formal request for investigation, so I'd like Chief Blakey to step up to the mic if that's allowable, and I would like an investigation to start immediately on what happened in that back room on 8/15/17.
Point of order, that I'd like to ask the solicitor a question.
Mr. DeSisto?
Mr. DeSisto, I believe that under Robert's rules,
Distributed, that's a point of privilege.
so, first of all, I'm a little confused as to how Councilor LeBeau, who is not actually in the room, would be aware and could somehow factually restate what happened in that room. Because there were 3 counselors in that room. And if this was discussed with the 4th...
I retract my statement.
Wait a minute.
You don't have to retract your statement.
You don't have to retract your statement. You just... Trisco, I think you
Continue.
should continue.
Continue.
And as far as Mr. LeBeau's accusations, in fact, again, as I mentioned in my opening statement, after yet again another council meeting where the behavior was disruptive and not professional, Councilor Ryan asked the council president if we could speak with her, and she said yes. And we, because there were people still in the council chambers, asked to go back into the lunchroom where we could sit at the table with the door open, which we did. And the purpose of that, to threaten with, we're only 2 counselors. There's nothing to threaten with. And as far as something I read that somebody put on Twitter that we'd make up a story, That's the silliest threat I've ever heard, and frankly, it's a little insulting to me. I'm not an extortionist by nature, but if I was going to extort somebody, I'd sure come up with something better than make up a story. The purpose of approaching Mrs. Shabbat was meant to be one of basic decency and respect. Under the law and the way the open meetings laws work, Counselor Ryan and I simply could have gone to a third counselor and said, would you sign on to a special meeting? We'll put it on the agenda, and then the council president would have been completely blindsided and had no idea that we were proposing to do this. So yes, did we meet with her? That's correct. But the purpose was to let her know that we thought that we had reached a point where we should consider a change in leadership. And it was really to give her the opportunity to consider that before we had to have a meeting like this. And if she didn't want to do it, that was okay, because we stated that we would probably consider going forward having a meeting like this. But I think it goes to the point of, you know what? No good deed goes unpunished. Maybe we should have simply not mentioned it at all, simply gotten a third counselor, put it on the agenda, and called a meeting. But we actually thought we were doing something that at a basic level of human decency was the right thing to do. And that's my response. And I do not for one single moment believe that there was anything that happened in there that was illegal. There was no extortion, there was no threat, there was none of that. There was an attempt to do something and to treat somebody the way that we would like to be treated. And that's what I have to say to Mr. LeBeau's comment.
And I will respond to how Mr. LeBeau found out about it, in that I have to go home to my husband. And I do talk to my husband, and I do talk to my sister, I talk to my family, and obviously, my husband is not going to stay quiet. Of any wrongdoing. But I think it was inappropriate behavior to pull me in the back room. Yes, I agreed. I had no idea why you wanted to discuss anything with me, and I was willing to sit down here and discuss it. And you indicated the back would be better, and hit me with, you want me to resign as president for not doing my job as the town council president, and giving me an excuse that I could gracefully back out of being town council president, using the excuse that I work in Boston and I don't have time to perform the duties of the town council president. And we started discussion, a little bit of discussion on the meeting that night, and I mentioned Councilor DiMederos because of the meeting. It was with Mr. Ray Johnson on the motocross, and yes, it did get out of hand. And I started to talk about it, and you said, nope, we're not going to talk about that. You know, there are many personalities on this council. There are 5 new council members on this council. There's only 2 senior members. So that means there's 5 freshmen, first-term people that were voted to this council. I didn't choose. People of this town chose the people that sit on this council. They have varying experiences. They have varying backgrounds. Some have sat on town council, they have sat on town committees, Ms. Hilton and Mr. Perry. And there are others, Mr. Edwards, Ms. Ryan, and Mr. LeBeau, that have no experience sitting on a board or commission. And taking that into consideration, it takes time, it takes patience to get through these meetings when people are not experienced We had a training session on open meeting law, on AFRA, Public Record Act. We even had a person from the Ethics Commission here, a lawyer, to go over ethics. I personally bought Robert's Rule of Order books and distributed it to the council members. Since the discussion we had, I have even gone so far as to ask the town solicitor, Mr. DeSisto, to go through Robert's Rules of Order and give a primer so that we can also get education on Robert's rules.
Disrespect works both ways.
You may feel disrespected, and I may feel disrespected, but we still have to get the job done as the town council for the people of Tiverton. You may not like it, it may not be pretty, but I can honestly say that things have improved since the beginning of this term. And I'll go through a couple of items. There have definitely been discussions with Ms. Hilton and myself after many meetings, and here are some of the changes that we've made over this period of time. Councilor mentioned the meetings were long meetings. So as an action, I try and keep them moving and on topic to keep to the 3.5 hour requirement. It was also mentioned that I shouldn't reference new counselors because it puts the new counselors in a bad light. They are full counselors, and they're not just new counselors or newbies. So my action on that was to refrain from referring to any of the counselors as new counselors or in any way indicating that they had no prior experience. I had 2 counselors approach me to have their seats changed. In that case, I said, get over it, it's not high school. I took no action. I had requests.
Kinds of information?
Excuse me?
As a kind of information?
Yes, Ms. Ryan?
Is this okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How so? Can you just,
Let her speak.
pardon?
Let her speak. Let her speak.
How is
Excuse
that,
me?
how is that okay?
Let the town solicitor respond.
I think what the council president is doing is she's giving her explanation of what she's done as council president, because the motion on the floor is to take nominations. So I do think it's appropriate.
Okay.
I had a request that people were unable to hear the executive session motions, so I made a change in having Councilor DiMederos to having Councilor Edwards make the motions for executive session. This was totally discussed with Councilor DiMederos. It was for clarity and so that people could hear the motions. There was also a request that I don't use the gavel enough. So my action on that was to use the gavel more often and actually say people were out of order. And one of the results of that was I got a, you're out of order. Okay? This happens. Patience, and we move on because we still have to do the council business. There was confusion on what is being voted on. Action on my part is ensure that the motion is restated after any long discussion so it is clear. This came from residents. They wanted to be sure that they understood what you were voting on. And after a long discussion, it's really difficult to understand that. So I took action on that. Also, recapping. I recap. I try to recap to bring thoughts and ideas together after discussion for clarification. I've had feedback from residents that helps them understand where the discussion's going. It also provides clarity for the council members to know what was being discussed and to all be on the same page before we do any motions or take any action. I was also approached to censor content. My job is to keep it on topic, and I try my best to keep it on topic. If it strays, I try and get it back on track. Sometimes people talk very quickly, and you can't necessarily shut them down quick enough. Also, as part of my normal practice, best practices, is I state my opinion or position after the councilors have spoken. I let them have their say, and then at the end, I present my opinion or my position, especially if it is different from theirs. I consider this a best practice, so that I'm not influencing, as council president, any other councilors' opinions. We also have a parliamentarian assigned, and that is the town solicitor. And if we need assistance with procedures, it is his job to assist the town council in staying with those procedures. Also, as recent actions, I have had requested an interpretation of the non-interference clause of the town council with the town administrator. So that's section 507, and that was passed out, distributed today. And I'll honestly say, it was because two councilors approached me about filing a charter complaint for interference with the town administrator's job. I also, as I've mentioned already, Robert's Rules of Order. Usage in the manual definitely are confusing, and I thought a primer would be great. The solicitor thought it was a great idea. So I requested the documentation, and we can use that as part of a process. We had discussed at the goal-setting session of probably having a Citizens Academy, so they can learn more about the town and the like. If the focus of this is on how I maintain order or decorum in a meeting, it's not an easy job, sitting in this seat. I also had no idea whether this would divulge into my other duties, because what was stated to me was I am not performing the duties of a town council president. Town council president position is not a full-time job. It's a part-time job. My availability is always, I'm available by phone for any type of discussion, phone meetings with the town administrator. If my presence is requested at a meeting or an event, I just need to be notified in advance, and I am always available, or will make every effort to be available. Any signatures on documents are either done at meetings or placed in the mailbox where I can sign them off hours. Certainly, this is my basic philosophy. And in certain discussions, actually before I get to that, my vote counts like everyone else's vote. I have the same vote and rights as every other counselor. I'm responsible for my own vote. I accept the voting outcome, and I don't take any votes where I don't prevail personally. My philosophy as being a council person is I do the prep work, I do the research, I keep an open mind, I listen to what people present at meetings and determine if arguments are sound and make sense. I vote for what is in the best interest of the town. I do not take things personally. And as far as the actions that were kindly discussed in the back room with an excuse and basically saying, if I've done anything wrong, there are processes to be followed. If I did something wrong that was a charter complaint, put forth a charter complaint. If it was an ethics violation, put forth an ethics violation. If it was a criminal complaint, I expect you to file criminal charges. If you're saying that I'm conducting myself unbecoming behavior of a town council president, I certainly dispute that. You may not like the way the town council is managed, but I think I have done my best, given the circumstances, the people that were voted by the people of this town to this council. And that's the only thing I can say in my defense, that I've done my best, and I've tried to change, take feedback, change things so that we improve what happens on the town council. And if you think it only happened, events happened at this town council, they certainly happened at prior town council meetings with prior presidents, not just me. So it is difficult, and I think certainly if Robert's rules were understood by the council members here, then it would certainly help progress the situation and make things better. I'm all for making things better, and I do take feedback, and I try and change, trying to improve things. That's my statement. Any other comments? Thank you.
Madam President,
Mr. Perry?
I took offense to the statement that you always went along with the vote. Back in April, when we voted as a council to accept the Budget Committee's recommendation for the budget, it was voted on 4-3. I approached you and Mr. LeBeau, who put in an alternate budget, and I asked you to please not do that. It was showing that you had no confidence in the council's vote. And you told me that you had the right to do what you wanted to, and I said, fine. Went along with that. I approached the solicitor, and I asked him if there was any way that we could meet as a group and not go against the open meeting law, to see if there was a way that we could have a special meeting to try to resolve our issues, because this council was self-destructing. And he said he would look into it. We continued on, and we had outbursts from Mr. LeBeau, we had outbursts from the people in the audience, and things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I asked the solicitor again, he said, I will look into it. And now we're at the point where we're at. I'm kind of embarrassed for the taxpayers of Tiverton who elected us to defend them in a respectable way, in a professional way. And I feel that we are not doing that, that something needs to be done. And I'm sorry that it had to come to this, but this is where we are today. That's all I have to say.
Madam President,
Ms. Ryan?
I want to first say that I agree with Councilor Hilton's interpretation of what happened in the meeting in the back room. I do not agree with your interpretation. I also said that we did suggest that it would be best for the town if you would step down as president of the council. Your response was that the councilors did not know Robert's rules and did not know how to participate in a meeting. We repeated that the meeting was getting worse, as the meetings were getting worse and worse, they were getting out of control, and we should get back to the point, which is what I would like to do right now. I understand there is turmoil in the town, and you may have guessed there is turmoil in the town council. While we've been able to accomplish some things since taking office, I would say, that for the past several months, it's been increasingly difficult to reach agreement because the discussions are so acrimonious. As noted in the statement that Councilor Hilton read, there needs to be decorum, civility, and order during the council meetings, and it is the responsibility of the council president to make that happen. I do not believe that we can go forward unless we do so under new leadership, and that is why I think it's necessary to elect a new council president. You forget, the council, while we are all elected by the people, the council president serves at the pleasure of the council. We, as a council, decide who we would like to be the leader. It's as simple as that.
Ms. DiMederos?
Joan, I know you said, excuse me, you're making an effort to make it better, but it's not getting better. I feel that there's so much disruption that goes on that sometimes we can't even make decisions for such a long time because people in the audience are yelling at us. People on the council are yelling at the solicitor. We're arguing with each other, and it doesn't seem that you stop it quick enough. It just gets totally out of hand. I understand how difficult it is to be president. I had somebody very difficult on my council, and it was very, very difficult to handle it. And I think it's our responsibility to also act professional. But there's some members that are just not doing that. And it's just very difficult to continue on like this. And this is one of the reasons, see, like people are talking from the audience. This is not a public hearing. So people shouldn't be doing this from the audience.
It's a public hearing.
No, it is
There's a
not.
coup going on in
It's-
town, we should be here.
It's,
I'm just gonna leave. I gotta go. I'm not here for
This is
please. Thank you.
This is just an example, and I don't know what the solution is, but there's got to be a change. Something has to happen. And this is not a coup. The town council president is elected by the 7 of us, and we have to feel comfortable with who's in charge and that things are going the right way. And this is not a public hearing, it's a public meeting. That's what it is. Everyone can be here, but it is not advertised as a public hearing. Is that correct, Tony?
It's a public
So
meeting.
Right, it's a public meeting, but not a public hearing. Joan, when you were just talking to Trish and Chris. Speak up, please. When you were talking to Trish and Chris, did you feel threatened?
Point of order.
Because that's what people,
Point of
you
order.
can't call point of order.
There's a motion on the table for a possible investigation. I don't think those questions should be.
He withdrew his motion. Randy withdrew his
He's
motion.
not the one that made the motion. I believe the council president made that motion.
Tony, would you participate, please?
You can't have a point of order coming from the audience.
Stop. Would you continue, Ms. DiMederos?
I just want to know, Joan, did you feel at all threatened by what they were doing to you? Did you feel there was going to be some kind of, besides not being president?
hear you.
Besides not being president, did you feel that there was some other kind of threat? Well, I'm asking because Randy is saying she did.
Well, in effect, when you tell somebody that you want them to resign and then give them an excuse that they can use to save face, I was shocked at the behavior. I was shocked. I absolutely didn't know what to say.
But you weren't threatened.
Then I actually called the town solicitor and said, this is what happened. And he also was shocked.
You shocked, Tony? Like, did you feel this was a threat?
I'm not going to answer that, but I can confirm that I'm typically shocked with a lot of the stuff that goes on, including when Joan called me.
I agree. That's it.
To respond to Mr. Perry, yes, we did discuss the budget and the alternate budget. And not only am I town council president, town councilor, I am also a taxpayer in this town. And there's nowhere in the charter that says I, as an individual, cannot put forth an alternate budget. I'm sorry, but that's
I didn't
the
say
way
that. I
feel.
was just making comment to your statement that
And-
you've always gone along with the vote, even though you weren't happy with it. That's what I was saying.
And if you did indicate to Mr. DeSisto that we needed a meeting to discuss this, that I was unaware of. And I wish I was made aware of that so that we could have dealt with this situation sooner.
Madam
Tony,
President.
did I not ask you that a couple of times?
Yeah, actually, several times.
Yes,
And
okay.
I interpreted that to mean whether or not it
Yeah,
could
I
be
just
done in
wanted-
executive session, and I
Right.
didn't think so, and I frankly didn't know how to answer your question, so your comments
I
are
just-
accurate.
Just to verify that I did ask. That's-
You did several times, and I can also verify, I never did speak to Joan about that either.
It's fine.
Now that each counselor has
Madam President.
spoken, I would like to read,
And this is why I blow up. And it's not going to stop. And I don't care who's sitting in that seat, because when I have something to say, it's going to be heard. And I don't care who gets the president. If
Mr.
they try to
LeBeau.
oust you, they're going to hear from me.
Mr.
I got elected by 3,045 people in this town. They know how I am, they know what I'm about, and I want my chance.
Mr. LeBeau.
Oh, you don't like it? You better get used to it, because it's 14 more months.
Mr. LeBeau, it is probably a...
It's not going to change.
Mr. LeBeau, please calm down. Each person on the council has spoken. I am here to read a letter from Councilor Edwards that he sent to me today. Fellow members of the Tiverton Town Council, as everyone on the council is aware, I am unable to attend the special meeting on September 7th, 2017, due to a personal conflict that I cannot move or miss. In advance of this meeting, I felt the need to convey some thoughts to the council. First and foremost, I am deeply disappointed that 3 members of this council, Councilors Hilton, Ryan, and DiMederos, were unwilling to facilitate a different date for the meeting. It was my understanding that the purpose of the meeting is to address council governance and leadership. I would ask those 3 councilors how it is possible to discuss how the council governs itself without all members present. As we were each elected to the council, we each represent different views from throughout the community. By ignoring my request for a more appropriate date, Councilors Hilton, Ryan, and DiMederos was in effect ignoring a large block of constituents who deserve to have their voices heard. Furthermore, I am disheartened by the refusal, as I would have happily supported such an accommodation for any one of them. In recent days, it has come to the attention of the community that the true purpose of the meeting called by Ms. Councilor Hilton is the ouster of President Shabbat. This was precipitated by an alleged backroom threat against the president. I am shocked and saddened by our town and constituents by Councilor Hilton and Ryan's actions. I believe that before we cast judgment on the performance of President Shabbat, Councilors Hilton and Ryan should evaluate their own actions leading up to this meeting. The council as a body is entrusted deep responsibility by the residents of Tiverton, and I am deeply discouraged by the way this discussion has arisen and the damage to public trust Councilors Hilton and Ryan have done. Originally, I was under the impression that this meeting was called as a way for the council to workshop ideas to promote a better working structure. If that was the intention of some members of the council, I would welcome such a meeting. However, if this meeting was called to oust President Shabbat, I would strongly encourage my fellow councilors to consider the gravity of such a discussion holds and ask that any consideration or vote that arises from such discussion be postponed until the council can meet in its entirety. I would welcome any comments from my fellow councilors at the next scheduled town council meeting on September 11th. Signed, John Edwards. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. LeBeau.
When I ran for council, people in this town knew exactly what they were getting when they elected me, exactly what they're getting. We're not going to have any more backroom politics. I told them that. And what do we have? We have backroom politics, calling the president into the back room, okay? And it's happening all the time. The clamshells stink, try the politics out here. Find out what's going on in the back room in this town. Little snipping everywhere. It's got to stop. And it's not going to stop if people don't understand what's going on. That was wrong, what went on in the back room in this council. It was absolutely 100% wrong, and I want an investigation on what happened back there. If it's criminal, I want resignations. And that's a formal request, Chief, for an investigation, and I don't think there should be a vote done in this town now tonight, because there is an investigation. We have an active investigation as far as I'm concerned. That was wrong.
Point.
And the backroom stuff is wrong. And I told you folks out there that I'm going to stop it. And this is how we're going to stop it.
Point
Thank
point
you,
of
Mr.
order.
LeBeau.
Again, Mr. LeBeau. Mr. LeBeau, with regard to your comment about the back room, Counselor Ryan and I asked Mrs. Shabbat at the end of the meeting, could we speak with her?
It's backroom politics.
Excuse me, I have the floor.
Yeah, well, it's still backroom politics.
Please let me finish.
Mr. LeBeau?
You know, we asked Mrs. Shabbat if we could meet with her. She said yes. We did not pull anybody into the back room. We didn't grab anybody and drag them down the hallway. We asked if we could meet. And because there were still people, we could have been out here, we wouldn't be in the back room, but there were people who were still milling about. And if you don't know, there's a kitchenette back there with a table and chairs. So we sat there. The door was open, people walked by. It's not a back room sort of thing. And, you know, we've explained already our intention. Again, we thought we were being kind, and we thought that we were treating somebody the way that we'd like to be treated and not be blindsided by something.
With an ultimatum.
Quiet from the audience.
And the ultimatum, as you call it, is what we have right now.
Not just me.
Excuse me. Or is the only option was, would you like to consider this? Okay, we're letting you know that we think this has reached the point where we need a discussion, and we'll put it on an agenda or call a special meeting. That's it. As far as Mr. LeBeau's comments about, you know, sort of backroom things and all of that, you know, Councilor LeBeau, if you have an accusation that you can back up against a counselor or a member of the staff that has broken a law, committed a charter violation, broken and created an ethics violation,
Quiet.
then I would suggest that you go through the correct formal process and file a complaint. But, you know, claiming these things, similar to a few weeks ago, you were claiming a board volunteer had committed all these illegal activities and then never produced any documentation.
Yeah.
Excuse me, please, I have the floor.
Then don't stop referring to me if you don't want an answer.
Mr. LeBeau,
Okay,
please calm down.
Get used to it.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to decline to continue
Thank
having a
God.
discussion with Counselor LeBeau. It doesn't seem to be very fruitful.
Actually, you're not supposed to be having a discussion with Mr. LeBeau. You're just supposed to be stating your, and not engaging Mr. LeBeau. Any other comments from the council? Very good. Is
Madam
there,
President, may I have a point of order, please?
No.
Why not?
We're not
No, no, no.
I understand that, but point of order can come off the floor.
No, it cannot.
Really?
Yes.
That's your ruling?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
so at this point, we have a motion and a second for nominations. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is there any reconsideration of that, since Counselor Edwards is not here?
May I ask a question?
No,
You said it was a public meeting, isn't it open for
public,
public
no,
comment?
not a public.
Oh, it's not a public meeting.
It's a public meeting, but not a public hearing.
We'll fix that, don't worry. This is far from over.
Miss-
Yes. Yes.
Be very careful, that's all I'm gonna tell you for.
It's a threat.
Reelected, that's
Quiet in the audience,
What do you think any
please.
four of you are gonna do? Different than her?
Please, Mr. Cudero, I appreciate your efforts, but please. Is it appropriate to allow public input?
There's a vote of the council.
Excuse me?
The council votes on it.
Will the council allow public input?
Yes.
Is that a motion?
Make a motion? I can't make another motion if there's a motion on the floor.
That's right. You're correct.
Right.
But as council president, I can have public comment. I can approve public comment.
That would take a vote. That would take a vote, because it's not on, the agenda wasn't posted for public comment.
Even though in some cases, we allow public comment on items on an agenda that is not public hearing.
My concern is the provision that says a special meeting is confined to what's on the agenda.
We can't hear you.
Special meetings by charter are confined to what was posted on the agenda. That's my concern.
Thank you, Mr. DeSisto.
Madam President, can I make a motion to continue this meeting until John Edwards is back?
No, that we cannot. We already have a motion on the floor.
Madam President, the only problem I have with public comment is this was not posted as a public meeting. Well, a public meeting, but not a public hearing. But there might have been other people that would have wanted to come if they could have talked. That's what it is.
Continue the meeting.
So, at this point, I've asked to reconsider until Counselor Edwards is available, as he kindly said in his memo to the council.
What, is this a motion? Is this a question? I'm not sure what the president is asking here.
I can't make a motion because there is a motion and a second on the floor. I am asking if the people who have made the motion and seconded would reconsider to have this meeting when Counselor Edwards is available. And there is a full council sitting at this table.
Madam President, my concern with that is that when we discussed this meeting with the clerk, at the same time, we were trying to schedule a very important planning board workshop. And we sat there and went around and around and around, and we couldn't even come up with a date in September for certain based on everybody's calendar, and particularly, I understand that Counselor Edwards has a new position that requires a bit of travel. And at the end of about a 10-minute discussion of everybody trying to find a single date in September that we could have this really necessary planning board workshop, we couldn't come up with it, and finally threw it back to the clerk and said, do the best you can. So when we called this special meeting, it's done, we're here. I don't think it is going to do anybody in this town good to just keep this, keep this going. It's not. I'm sorry that Counselor Edwards could not be here this evening, but on the other hand, there was a very important workshop on council goals, which I consider a really important thing, and neither Counselor DiMedeiros nor I were available to the dates, yet it was held anyways. It is just unfortunately in this day and age of fact of life that sometimes it's hard to get people together, and based on the fact that we couldn't even schedule a planning board workshop in an entire month, I think that, that delaying this indefinitely is not prudent.
Madam President, did Councilor Edwards give you any dates he was available?
I believe he said in the email sometime after the 14th, or is that Mr. Perry?
Madam President,
Ms. Ryan?
I think I would like to move forward and just vote on the motion. Is that appropriate?
This is what you need to do at this point under Robert's rules. Either somebody moved to reconsider the original motion, or the person that made the motion asked it to be withdrawn and the second withdrawn, or somebody calls the question and you take a vote. Those are the three things you can do right now.
I'll call a question.
And the vote would be on,
Whether or not there would be nominations. Yes.
could you repeat the motion?
Motion
Just so that it's clear.
was to, the motion was made by Councilor Hilton, seconded by Councilor Ryan, to elect a town council president.
Madam Clerk, just to clarify, would you like me to read it exactly as I stated it?
Sure, because I also have the tape to back me when I type.
The motion was to call for nominations for a new election for president of the town council.
There's a motion, the motion for, actually to end debate, that's calling the question. There's a motion but no second.
For her? For
There's
For
a
me.
motion, and the main motion, there's a motion and a second.
Yes, for
You
my...
made a further motion to call the question.
Okay.
There's no second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded on ending debate.
I have a question for Tony before we go on. He said there was a third option up there. Can you repeat what the options are?
Motion to call the question, which has been made and seconded. Motion to reconsider, which was called for by the council president. And the third one was have the movant withdraw the motion, and the second withdraw the second. Those were the three options.
Can I make that third option?
Got to vote on the pending floor vote, which is non-debatable. That's the motion to call the question.
So motion's been made and seconded on ending debate. All those in favor? 4, opposed? Motion carries. Then the next motion is Councilor Hilton's motion, which is
To call for nominations for a new election of president for town council.
that has to be voted on.
Yes.
So motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
I have a discussion. I need to speak first.
Because actually, the prior motion was to end debate.
So you can't. Sorry.
Of course not.
Robert's rules.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? 4 opposed? Motion carries. Now, the next activity would be,
Nominations.
so that
Madam
means
President?
that the town clerk shall sit in the president's chair
Yes.
to take nominations.
I nominate John Edwards.
Yes, the way you've done it.
I'll take you. No?
Okay, my purpose here is only to accept nominations and a vote for the position of president. Do I have any nominations?
John Edwards.
Second.
I nominate,
Do I have any other nominations?
I nominate Denise DiMaderos.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Second.
I'm sorry, who?
Second.
Do I have any other nominations? Do I have any other nominations?
I nominate Joan Shabbat.
I can't even hear what they're saying. You're going to have to stop. I can't hear what they're saying. Did you say that? I'm sorry, Councilor LeBeau.
You better watch out, because you're gonna be out of here. I've got a child complaint against you that I've kept.
Excuse me, ma'am. If you have a charter complaint, just file it.
I will, tomorrow.
I'm sorry, Mr. LeBeau. I couldn't hear you. Were you seconding the motion? Thank you. Okay, do I have any other nominations? Do I have any other nominations? Do I have any other nominations? Okay, the nominations are closed. Tony, I'm going to begin with the first one first, asking for a vote.
That's correct,
on the first
yes.
nomination.
Correct.
Okay. The first nomination is for Councilor Edwards. It was made by Councilor LeBeau and seconded by Councilor Shabbat. Do I have a vote for Councilor Edwards to be the president? Just raise your hand, I'll catch it. Okay.
Really?
And I don't have to call for negatives, right? I just call, because once, the process is going to be that once someone receives the majority of the votes, that person will become, I'll have to state that person is the president. Okay, the second nomination I had is made by Councilor Ryan, seconded by Councilor Perry, and it is for Councilor DiMederos. Do I have a vote for Councilor DiMederos?
The lowest vote getter.
Remember those four. Okay.
Okay.
We'll remember.
So, I'm sorry, it was Councilor Ryan, Councilor Hilton, Councilor Perry, and Councilor DiMederos, did you vote? I couldn't see. Okay. Okay, I have 4 votes for Councilor DiMederos, so we will, therefore, Councilor DiMederos takes precedence.
Correct, 90.
And then
Vice President.
the president, would conduct the election for the vice president, or do you want me to?
I think you have to, yes.
You want me to continue?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'm going to continue with the process and ask for nominations for a vice president of the council. Do I have any nominations?
John Edwards.
Is anybody going to second that?
Second.
Do I have any other nominations for vice president?
Joe Perry.
Decline. Decline.
Okay, but I still have to record it, Joe. Do I have any other nominations for vice president?
Mr. LeBeau?
I decline. I don't want to have anything to do with it, thank you, though.
Okay, Mr. Perry and Mr. LeBeau have declined. Do I have any other nominations for vice president? Any other nominations for vice president? Any other nominations for vice president? Nominations are closed. Do we have a vote for Councilor Edwards? Three? I'm sorry, I can't see back there. 4? Okay. Councilor Ryan and Councilor Hilton, I'm sorry, I can't see while I'm writing. You did not vote on this, right? Did you vote? I'm asking for all
you're only voting
votes
for
for
Are the hands?
Councilor Edwards.
Sorry, I didn't realize we were voting.
Yes, the vote is for Councilor Edwards on vice president. I'm sorry, I cannot always see. Joan, you did vote for it, and Randy, you did. Okay. So that's 5 to 1.
Edwards, don't accept it.
Then Council Edwards will have to say that at Monday's meeting, and then the council will I assume the council president would handle a vote at that time. I only have to fill in when there's no president.
Just wondering if it needs that.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.